The Phoenix Suns playoff opponent is finally set. We are ready for game one. Jake Madison of Locked On Pelicans, and I will preview this series for you. Get ready with everything you need to know heading into Sunday's game one. That's what's coming up on today's Locked On Suns.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member and a contributor at Suns.com and Dime Magazine, covering this Suns team for the past 5 seasons. Thanks for making Locked On Suns your first listen today and every day. Scroll down, hit that subscribe button, get on board. The playoffs are here. The biggest Suns run in a very long time is here, and game one of the first round is just around the corner. Joining me to talk about all things Suns Pelicans, now that we know what is actually going on here with round one, is Jake Madison. He covers the Pelicans for the Locked On Pelicans podcast. Jake, how are you feeling? I just have to, I'm talking to you. I get to talk to you after the win. I feel like I have to at least kind of let people know what this is like. You guys were never supposed to be here.
No, look, I'll be honest. The way I'm feeling is pretty rough right now. I'm kind of hungover after celebrating the Pelicans getting into the playoffs, to be perfectly honest here. No, that's why this is so much fun. And that's why, getting into the postseason for the chance to potentially be slaughtered by the Suns is actually like a really big deal for New Orleans. They were 1-12 to start the year, 3-16. You haven't had Zion Williamson for 1 minute this season. To kind of come as far as they have, even if it's through kind of like a backdoor way to get into the postseason, says a lot about this group and how they've grown throughout the course of the year and really come together to be a team that is very easy to root for the people of New Orleans. So everyone was celebrating last night at one of the watch parties. It was a lot of fun. So just getting this far, it's like not quite just happy to be here, but like there's definitely a degree of that in all of this.
Yeah, I was saying we did this crossover, something only Locked On really can do this way with local experts, people like Jake and I who have really been around these teams for such a long time. I was saying to you, I kind of think this team, I don't want to put any expectations that the finals are coming, because look, Suns fans didn't expect that either. But the bubble did this for the Suns, right? It was an opportunity to hey, it's kind of house money that we're here. Let's just see what we can do. I think even the play-in game was a little bit of that. You had Anthony Edwards kind of doing that in one of the games, Brendon Ingram really stepping up in the other one. People who didn't watch that game, you really missed a special performance. 105-101, the Pelicans win that game. But Jake, you were saying the way that the team started the season was about as bad as it really could have been. And then obviously the Zion cloud hanging over things, which we won't even, we have no need to talk about any of that. But the fact remains, this team has been pretty excellent for a while now. Is it crazy to say that if this team played the way that they have for the past 50 or so games, that they would have been out of the play-in, competing for a 5-6 seed? It seems like that's the quality they've been at for a while here.
Yeah, I agree with that. When you look at them, there have been multiple parts of the season. You had that awful start where Brendon Ingram missed a number of games with a hip injury during that, and they were bad. It's a rookie head coach and Willie Green starting to figure some things out, trying to really kind of learn his rotations in his players. So there's a lot of growing pains. They started to hit their stride around the middle of the season. Then Brendon Ingram suffered another injury. He's missed 27 games this year, right? It's a significant amount of time lost here. And then at the trade deadline, they traded for McCollum, who ended up being really excellent for New Orleans. And so if you go back to even February 1st, this is a team with the 7th best offense, the 6th best defense. They have the 7th best net rating during that time. They're not a pushover. Are they an elite team? No, certainly not. But if they kind of kept up playing at that sort of rate, doing what they can do, running two bigs at times, potentially being able to go smaller too, and you saw that in that win over the Los Angeles Clippers, they're not a bad team. And so I think they felt pretty confident going into the play-in tournament, especially when you have an elite scorer in Brendon Ingram. So they're going to come into this matchup kind of with that really intense underdog mentality and go, okay, we've proven everyone wrong this whole season. Let's really try and continue that. But no, this is a team that's definitely better than their record indicates.
If Suns fans are wondering, Because this is, as you just outlined, like it's a team that is very different than it was at the beginning of the season. It's a team that has taken a lot of different forms. Even the guys in the rotation are very different. Devontae Graham is like hardly part of this situation anymore after being a prize signing just a bit ago. What would be the thing that you would tell a Suns fan who's wondering, like, what should I be most worried about? What's the biggest strength of this Pelicans team that the Suns are going to have their hands full with?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? It's the two main players. It's definitely going to be Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum, and these are two guys that have really started to get on the same page, can go out and be elite scorers. You've seen it in the play-in tournament, right? Against the Spurs, CJ had 27 points in the first half, and then Brandon Ingram was the guy that took them home. Being able to kind of trade off like that and develop good chemistry, and you're seeing them run actions with each other. You'll see CJ screen for Brandon Ingram or vice versa, which really gets these guys open and moving, and they're both killers at kind of any range. They can both get to the rim and score. They can shoot the three, CJ better than BI can. And then they're killers, just like Devin Booker in the mid-range. And so they can get to those spots. And there's enough kind of rebounding around him. You have a big man who's very solid and well above average in Valanciunas down low. You know, there's not as much depth there as you would like. They're a little bit top heavy, but those are two pretty strong guys to kind of have at the top end of your roster, I think. And so if Brandon Ingram's going for 30 and CJ is hot and making some threes and scoring too, it's a tough team to beat, I think.
Yeah, as we saw, I mean, if no Paul George is an obvious factor, and you can't understate that, but that's a lot of veterans on the other side of that Clippers game, and watching the Pelicans just be able to really handle that, the poise that especially Ingram played with, having 6 assists to just 2 turnovers after we just saw what that defense was able to do to Karl Anthony Towns, like. This guy is no joke. We know what CJ McCollum is, and they just fit together. I want to talk about who is shepherding that fit along, because he's somebody Suns fans will have a lot of familiarity with, of course. We'll get to that. We'll break down some of these matchups. We'll break down kind of what will decide the series. First, though, guys, today's show brought to you by Athletic Greens. I've been drinking AG1, their new product, every single day, mixing it in with some water. They even sent us over a nice bottle that's labeled, so I don't have to find my own. I know, hey, that's the AG1 bottle. I just shake it up, pour it in before a workout, maybe midday, maybe at night. It's up to you. It's supposed to help your gut health. It's supposed to help your immune system. You know your body. AG1's just there to support it. 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, adaptogens. I don't even know what an adaptogen is, but I know that it's helping me. AG1 has actually been making a huge difference in my life. I'm not even going to lie to you. I'm a bloater. The meal just sits with me. I have a good metabolism. Like, I'm in good shape, but for whatever reason, I eat a big meal and it really screws me up. I have allergies constantly. AG1, I've noticed it. It was perfect timing that we started these right in the spring. Pollen has been destroying every Arizonan, I think, around the state. Tons of multivitamins, and it's a small micro habit with big benefits. I love that. You take it one time per day and you really feel it. Right now, reclaim your health, arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, 1 scoop in a cup of water per day. That's it. No need for a million different pills or supplements, just AG1. To make it easy, Athletic Greens giving you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NBA network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NBA network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. The head coach of the Pelicans, of course, is one Willie Green. He rose up very, very quickly through the ranks. I think Suns fans just about a year ago were very surprised that he was even getting interviews and then progressing, and then holy crap, he's getting hired, and this is our last chance to see him in action. And obviously, though, I think Suns fans have been rooting for Willie Green, but when I watch this team, Jake, I just can't help but marvel at the job that he has done to take a young team, to piece them together in the way that he has, to not have, like, I think young coaches just coach with fear sometimes. So you have a starting lineup that's as wonky as the Pelicans, the freedom to bench Devontae Graham, basically. There's just so many marks of a good coach here, and I think Suns fans are really excited about that. But I also feel like it makes this team more difficult to deal with. So what kind of impact has Willie had from your perspective over his first full season here?
It's night and day compared to last year. There's not enough good things you can say about Willie Green. This is the Pelicans' third head coach in 3 years, and last year under Stan Van Gundy was an absolute disaster. You had Josh Hart, who's like one of the nicest, happiest guys ever, talking about how he hated playing basketball and wanted to like quit, right? Brendon Ingram was miserable last season. And now, like, the vibes on this team, man, are just through the roof. They are having so much fun to the point that it even got Zion to come back from Portland early because he had FOMO and wanted to be around these guys kind of partying with them on the bench. And you can really see a lot of like genuine love and affection kind of up and down this roster. And that's just because of Willie Green and the attitude and the approach that he's brought in. And as you mentioned, right, there's some fearlessness to him in there. He started Herb Jones, a second-round pick, after the second game of the regular season and stuck with that guy. It was clearly the right move, but what coach does something like that to that degree and is going to trust a second round pick like that, to really change his rotation going into the play-in tournament from the regular season was the right move. So he motivates these guys. If you've seen the clip of him after the Pelicans had just kind of had a reversal of 20 points, they're down 10 going into the fourth quarter. It's that Clippers game. And he's talking these guys up in the huddle, talking about how they need to fight. This is their moment. Don't shy away from it. It's motivating. And it worked with those players, and they managed to come out and get the win. So he's clearly such a key part of everything about this Pelicans team and kind of the heart and soul of it. But he's also a rookie coach, and he definitely makes rookie mistakes too, and he's learning and growing from that. You saw it in the third quarter against the Clippers where he played 10 guys because he just could not figure out what was working and had no idea kind of what to do. Like Tony Snell minutes in that one were a little bit frustrating for a period of time. But, you expect that. There's growing pains there too, but I think he certainly showed kind of his chops that he's going to be a top quality NBA head coach.
Yeah, watching Marcus Morris just bowl over Tony Snell a few times was, as somebody who like kind of just low key, but mostly look, I predicted the Pelicans would win, so I just wanted to be right. But also, I think it's a better story. I think it's a more fun matchup. It was painful for me as well, I will say, although probably not as much for you. But one of the other things that's been different about this group compared to last year, aside from the Zion stuff and CJ, is the rookies, as you just mentioned, with Herb Jones getting so much trust from the jump as sort of like a draft nerd favorite, suddenly becoming an actual impact player and getting all rookie most likely. But also you have Trey Murphy, who was another hero of the play-in game. And you have Jose Alvarado, who had a weird box score. It's not going to be a guy when in 15 years you look back at this box score, you're not going to feel like he made a difference, but he did. He was a plus 12. How do those guys, how do you feel about those guys? Are they trustworthy? Are they reliable? Do you see this rotation going even thinner and just really going to the vets at a certain point? How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, I think they're all going to play key roles in this season, this series, at least for the Pelicans. Herb's going to be starting, and he's going to have the Devin Booker assignment, right? Not on Herb is kind of the running joke with him. There's t-shirts made and everything like that because he's been a lockdown defender. When you look at basically every matchup, and I haven't looked yet at the matchup data between him and Devin Booker, and I'm looking forward to kind of diving into that matchup. He's shut down like everyone he plays. Like he completely shut down DeJounte Murray, who's not at Devin Booker's level, but having a guy that can kind of shut down an elite perimeter player or at least slow them down significantly is a huge boost for the Pelicans. So you'll see him, playing 35 minutes per game, taking that Devin Booker assignment pretty much all of the time. And they're going to do everything they can to keep him on book for sure. You'll see a lot of pre-switching. They did that very well against the San Antonio Spurs, where they're going to take him off book suddenly, and then when a pick and roll comes, you'll see him switch right back on there, and that's all going to be by design. Then you have a guy like Trey Murphy, who is absolutely, in my opinion, the hero of almost both of these play-in tournament games. He really came in and helped close the door against the Spurs, and I was screaming at them to put him in the freaking game against the Los Angeles Clippers when that one was starting to get out of hand in the third quarter. He comes in at the end of that third quarter, plays 4 minutes, and I think it was a +7 in those 4 minutes, really kind of turning their fortunes around. He's a guy that can hit three-pointers. He went 3 of 4 in that game, especially in the second half. And he's got long length. Like he's a good switchable defender. So you can have him guarding guards. You can have him trying to handle some of these front court guys. He did exceptionally well against a guy like Evan Mobley in the past too, who's been excellent this season. So they need to be playing him significant minutes. That's actually a change to the rotation that I would like to see, is him getting more minutes, because I think they're kind of toast if they don't have him playing a big role. Then there's Jose Alvarado, who is undersized, but but just has some of the kind of the sneakiest, trickiest, peskiest type of plays. There's a little bit of like Patrick Beverley in him there when it comes to that sort of thing. And he hustles. You saw him grab a key offensive rebound for New Orleans after missing his own shot and putting that back up and getting the 2 points. He's barely 6 foot, if that. So having a guy that can kind of come in and play limited minutes and just be a little bit effective in those roles. And I'm really going to be interested in some of those matchups between kind of the backup point guards in this one, with him matching up against Campaign, because I think that's going to be a pretty fun one. But all three of those guys should be getting pretty significant minutes in this series, I think. And I think at least it wouldn't shock me if a guy like Devontae Graham has a pretty short leash. So I think they'll start to tighten up the rotation in this one.
Yeah, I think Chris Paul will make short work of Devontae Graham. I mean, that's the thing about the Suns is I think that they, in playoff mode, as we saw, like they were able to make Michael Porter Jr. chopped liver out there at times. And they are surgical with that stuff. So that's part of why I'm curious about who plays. Is it's going to really be a feeling out thing for Willie to see like who can do enough on both ends, who's locked in mentally, who is executing the game plan enough. And Suns fans saw that, front row last year with some of these young players that they had. And fortunately, most of them did step up. But let's talk about some of the other matchups here. You talked about the offensive rebounding a little bit. You talked about, obviously, Ingram and McCollum. So I want to get into the nitty-gritty here. First, though, guys, today's show brought to you by Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar on the entire planet. I've gone and tasted each and every one. Built Bar is the best. We love it. We love them. We love them. It's a cult here at the Locked On Podcast Network. And right now, I'm perusing the website. They have 2 new flavors, peanut butter and blueberry muffin. And I feel like that's a great example of how delicious and versatile. Versatile is a weird word to use for a protein bar, but it's true. They can do fruit. They can do rich, creamy chocolate, and both are good. They're all covered in 100% chocolate. They're all soft. They're all easy to chew. They're all low in sugar, but still very delicious. I don't know how they do it. I really do not. My personal favorite, peanut butter brownie. So I'm honestly looking at the peanut butter with my eyebrows up a little bit. At Built Bar, they are all about taste. They make it delicious first, then they figure out how to make it healthy. Low in sugar, high in protein, low in calories. That's the bottom line. They pull it off every single time. Each and every one of these that I've ever tried has been delectable, and I'm sure you will love them too. There's something for everybody. So go to Built.com, guys. Check it all out. Use the promo code LOCK15 when you do to get 15% off your first order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, let's close things out here, Jake. Larry Nance completely caught my attention. I have to admit, like once I saw that the Suns could end up playing New Orleans as things got closer to the end of the season, I was like, okay, I got to at least do some box score watching and then obviously watch the play-in games. But Nance is a guy who wasn't healthy and then comes in and is suddenly probably the single biggest difference maker in terms of maybe who we expected to play at a really high level and who did play at a really high level in that second play-in game. I feel like he is going to have to continue to do that because the Suns are going to make it difficult on Valanciunas, difficult on Jackson Hayes. Larry Nance, to me, it gives you the best of both worlds a little bit. He can do a little bit of everything. I mean, I don't know if he's going to get 7 offensive rebounds a night, but what do you expect from him in this series? Can he keep this up? Can he play high minutes? What should Suns fans be watching there?
Yeah, I agree with basically everything you said. They're going to start, I would imagine, with Jackson Hayes and Valanciunas. I don't think they're going to kind of deviate from that formula, but neither of those guys can really defend in space, and that can be a really big problem, particularly when you're going to be hunting those matchups in the pick and roll with Chris Paul and Devin Booker, trying to kind of hunt those and get some easy points when you get them out in space. And they're basically cooked at that point. So you've got to put in a guy who can actually defend in that kind of role out there, and that's going to be Larry Nance Jr., I think. He hadn't been healthy all year. They've been slowly ramping him up, and he was kind of fully unleashed, and you saw him at his best in that game against the Clippers the other night. So he's a guy that I think is going to get significant minutes. I wouldn't be shocked, if they start Jax to start the first half, second half, and that's kind of really the extent of what he's going to be doing. Great lob threat, right? But he can't really defend in space. That's going to be a big problem, especially with so many threats and all the depth that the Phoenix Suns have. I think that's something that could absolutely kill New Orleans. And look, it makes me nervous because they do have an advantage being able to go and get offensive rebounds with the two traditional bigs that they put out there in Jackson Hayes and Valanciunas. And all of a sudden now, and you saw it against the Clippers, those guys get played off the court a little bit, and it neutralizes some of that advantage for the Pelicans here. So the front court matchup, they're going to need to go with a guy like Larry Nance Jr. just because it's out of necessity, but it still kind of ends up hurting them a little bit too, I think.
My my headphones decided to die mid-podcast, so we're moving on. I am going to quickly try to do this fix, and we will see if I can do it in a timely fashion. I hope so. Can you talk?
Yeah. Here, let me keep going here and talk a little bit more about the Pelicans and everything, right? So no, I think that's one of the areas that really concerns me. Kind of looking at this team a little bit, I'm not in love with this matchup for New Orleans, nor would you be really with 1 versus 8. But it's kind of one of those things where everything kind of favors the Phoenix Suns. They've got enough defense to really throw out Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum and limit those guys. The other thing that we didn't even talk about when we did my show here was how good the Phoenix Suns are at 3-point shooting. They don't take a lot of threes, but they're really good when it comes to the percentage and making those threes. And New Orleans just does not have 3-point threats for the most part. They're going to really need to rely on a guy like Trey Murphy hitting 3 threes per game, which might be a lot to ask for of a rookie in some of these big moments. And we've seen CJ McCollum not really kind of step up in the playoffs and have those explosive games, carry those Portland Trailblazers teams to wins too. So at a certain point, I get a little bit nervous about just straight up the math in this game. If Phoenix is creating and manufacturing open 3-point looks and getting those 3-point looks, I'm worried that New Orleans is not going to be able to match up with that. And you saw it against the Clippers. They struggled to shoot the 3 ball, particularly in the first half. They were 4 of 19, so 20%, basically 19%. And it allowed New Orleans to get a big lead. And then the second they started hitting those threes, that lead got whittled away. So New Orleans did what they needed to do in the first half of that game to get that big advantage, knowing that they were probably going to lose it at a certain point in time. I trust the Phoenix Suns to make those threes and to not kind of run into some of those problems because they do have a number of guys who can get their shot and create that and be able to go out and score.
Yeah, this is a series that I think is going to be whoever can get into transition, I think is going to benefit. Although I obviously understand the Suns have the advantage when it does come to the half court, but I said this on your show, but I didn't say the Clippers half of it. So in the half court of that first game of the play-in game, New Orleans scored 85 points per 100 possessions. The Clippers scored 91. Neither team was higher than the 18th percentile. So it got ugly, right? And I think the Suns have fallen victim to some of that in the past. We know that the Pelicans kind of trump card there is going to be offensive rebounding. You were just talking about what happens when maybe Valanciunas isn't out there, what happens when Hayes isn't out there, and the size advantage kind of falls away. That's part of why Nance's performance was so big. But at the end of the day, when these teams played the last time, Chris Paul was not in that game. But other than that, it was relatively fully healthy. We saw so much switching that I think the emphasis that is getting put on Ingram, who guards him, McCollum, who guards him, even like who guards Booker. Some of that goes away because both teams are fully cool with DeAndre Ayton guarding CJ McCollum, with Brandon Ingram guarding Chris Paul. Like, it will be pretty chaotic at a certain point, and it's just going to be, can you guard your man and can you read what's happening on the floor and just execute the defense? And that's kind of fun. I mean, that's kind of where the NBA is right now, but it makes it more interesting for sure.
No, absolutely. You're right. And, that's why I think they're going to run a bit of a different rotation here. That's why they kind of want those guys who are 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", and Najee Marshall, Trey Murphy to be out there on the court for that switching, because otherwise they're just not a good enough defense overall, top to bottom, to be able to handle it otherwise. So throw the length out there and then basically almost like pray to a degree that those guys give you just enough offense or hit their 3-point shots. And look, it's an uphill battle for New Orleans. There's no other way to say it. It's like I said on my show, I'm not going to sugarcoat it here and be like, no, go Pels, they're going to win. It's a tough matchup, but it's going to be a good learning experience for this team. And I think kind of what, at the end of the day, for New Orleans, you're looking at them to kind of use this as a springboard for subsequent seasons. So this is going to be a great experience for these guys on a really big stage against a really excellent team. There's fun storylines and matchups, and then we'll see who really steps up for this Pelicans roster and who's really worthy of having a significant role next year. But it's certainly going to be with a lot of length and a lot of switching, because otherwise New Orleans might run into a lot of trouble if they try and defend a different way.
Absolutely. Should be a blast of a series. Game 1, Sunday night, 6:00 local time. We'll see if we'll do another crossover, but either way, be here every single step of the way for you guys. Every single game recap, in between, news, campaign, what's going on with his knee, all of it right here on the Locked On Suns podcast. So subscribe, follow along, follow us at Locked On PHX Suns on Twitter, where you can find every show and live tweeting during games and all that fun stuff. Thanks for making Locked On Suns your first listen, guys. Now go make Locked On NBA your second listen to get caught up on everything playoff-wise going on around the association every single night.